Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, and in today's video, we are going to be breaking down the new Hero Asgardian team in its fullness, based on the kits we saw on the blog post for Mighty or Jane Thor, whichever you want to call her, and Valkyrie, alongside the previous rework informations for the other three. And I want to do this in a similar fashion that I did with the Unlimited X-Men tables, and really give an idea about what this team brings to the table with regards to buffs, debuffs, other passive crazy stuff, and my initial thoughts for this team as we go into patch 6.2 later, because this is something that I'm going to be working on this month and want to share this with all of you. So if you're ready to go, then let's go boil this team down. And before we get started with the tables, I just want to kind of refer to this. If you guys haven't checked out the blog post, go do that. This is where you can see all of the new kit information for Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, Mighty Thor, and Valkyrie down below. If you're unfamiliar, if you didn't catch the blog post, you didn't catch my blog video on that, you can find it here. I'll be referencing a lot of the stuff in this, and also the reworked information from the previous Asgardians in my table. So let's hop on over, because it's a little bit different than the Unlimited X-Men, if you guys had checked that video out. So let's get started. I'm going to zoom out a little bit there. Okay, so on the left-hand side, my head is blocking the way. But we have Heimdall, Sif, OG Thor, Jane Thor, and then Valkyrie. So on my table, she's referred to as Jane Thor. So hopefully that's okay. And then let's start things off clean and simple here with the healing part. They do have healing on turn, about up to 25% on itself per turn, and that's assuming you have the whole Asgardian team together. They get 5% per member, essentially. They get 5% base and then 5% per member, so they all get 25%. So that's good. Let's start with Heimdall, though, because Heimdall, he's in my opinion, he's going to be the least important character to gear, because he's very expensive to gear. He requires 5 sets of minis on the level of Hela. He's Mystic, and in my opinion, you probably shouldn't be devoting the gear towards him. However, he's kind of one of these characters that are just going to be there, so maybe you can just get him to gear 12 and then level 85, compensate with the gold maybe, because I've done that with Sinister 6, with Swarm and Electro, and I've been able to get them to about 120k at level 85, even without gear, so that might help. I just don't feel good about gearing him, but let's talk about what he does. So he does give on spawn 2 turns to the team defense up in war defense. He also gives speed up for 2 turns if anyone drops below 50% hit points, but this is to the for himself and for the team on war defense only. He also does the same thing for death proof, 2 death proof, so it's the same mechanic. It's 2 death proof and 2 turns of speed for self and team on war defense. Sif has something similar, as you can see. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then moving over, you see there's a big gap, and then he gets a 20% turn bar to himself if he gets heal blocked. It's a really weird one, because if you look further down when we get there, they get resistance to heal blocks, so I don't know. It's a bit strange that he's the only one that has that thing. He does now clear heal block. Of course, he did that before on a special, but now he also clears 2 negative effects to the team as well. So that's something interesting to note. So that's Heimdall on the buffs side of things. There's honestly lots of extra notes down below. We'll get to that, all regarding to Heimdall, because he's got a huge giant passive, and that's not a lot of that's not listed up in this bar here. So as far as Sif goes, she does also gain she gains 2 turns of offense up, 2 Hero Asgardian allies on war defense if they drop below 50% hit points. So similar to Heimdall, basically anytime anyone drops below 50% hit points, a ton of characters get they just get a lot of buffs. Offense up, defense up, speed up, assuming death proof, assuming everyone's alive. There's a lot of stuff, and sorry, not defense up, offense up, speed up, and death proof. If they're still alive. So that's a lot of crazy stuff here. Sif does give 1 turn of on-spawn defense up to the team as well, and then her special also does that to the team too. Sorry, this is to self. This is to the team via her special 2 hero Asgardian allies. She does give 1 turn on spawn immunity. I believe this is to herself in war defense as well. She does gain 3 counters for herself. I believe that's her basic. And she gets 2 deflect on spawn and then 2 as well from her basic. And then she also gets 2 turns of taunt. Now, this is really important because this is new. So she gives 2 turns of taunt if any of the hero Asgardian allies drop below 50% hit points, but again, on war defense. So a lot of the good functionality, unfortunately, is stuck on war defense. But there's some things with Mighty Thor that is just war specific only, which is okay. And that's it for Sif. So moving on to OG Thor. Doesn't have a lot. He's just like pure damage, and we're going to talk about that when we get to the extras. That's it. I don't believe he has any buffs. Oh wait, he gets turn bar. Yes, sorry, I forgot. He gets turn bar 5% on hit when the other Asgardian allies get hit, and that obviously contributes to his passive, which we'll talk about. And then he does clear and flip defense up on his basic. Sorry, just flip. I changed this around now to clear or flip, so I specified this specifically. Flips defense up on his basic, so that's new as well. Let's talk about Jane Thor. Again, she doesn't really have a lot of buffs. She does the same passive healing. What else does she do down here? She clears and flips 2 effects, positive effects on her ultimate, I believe. It's the AoE, and then she can also clear 2. I think that might be on her basic. So clear 2 on basic, flip 2 AoE. This is the really good one, actually, the AoE flipping, so that's pretty cool. Flip 2 buffs there. Valkyrie, though, she's like the support. I know she's not a support character, but she like gives so much buffs and support to the team. So she gives 2 turns of offense up to the team, and 2 turns of defense up to the team. She also does this on death. We'll talk about the on death mechanics because she has this crazy, like, when she dies or any of the other characters die, does a ton of buffs. She gives 2 turns to the team of immunity on death. She can transfer death proofs from the enemies to allies. That's cool as well. And then she gives 2 counter as well to the team. I believe it's this buff here. It's 2 turns of offense up, defense up, and counter to the team here. And then safeguard as well on the team, but again, it's on an ally death. And then she also does clear all negative status effects when somebody dies as well. So there's a lot of things that are missing from this team, just positive wise. No barrier, no stealth, no regen, no evades. You know, that's all gone and missing from this team. So they don't do any of that, unlike Unlimited X-Men, who had some regen and, you know, a lot of barrier, things like that. So let's talk about the positive extras, and a lot of this is going to be passive related, and boy is this effing long, because there is a lot of things to talk about. A lot of this is Heimdall. Heimdall gives himself and Asgardian allies 10,000% resistance against blind. This is old. He gives himself and Asgardian allies 30% focus. He gives Asgardian allies 100% accuracy. This is new. So if they happen to somehow slip through and get a blind, they're going to have additional 100% accuracy. So it's not going to matter anyways. Heimdall gives himself and hero Asgardian allies 25% crit chance. That's new. And then in war, Heimdall can generate on his turn 2 ability energy to random hero Asgardian allies that are not at full energy. That's also new. Now Sif, she always had this, but she has 75% block chance for full Asgardian team, so she blocks quite frequently. Sif also gives self and hero Asgardian allies 25% resistance. I believe this is new. Thor is a stat powerhouse. If you haven't checked my video from, I believe it was last week, watch my older video on these stat changes, because Thor's stats just went through the roof. So despite not getting a lot of change to his kit and things like that, his damage is going to be quite substantial, I believe, and I'm excited to see what happens. Now, of course, Thor has a 5-charge passive AoE attack. That's the Hammer Slam. So that's not added. That's not in the above, but it's here. Jane Thor also has a 5 charges mechanic for single target damage, and in war this adds trauma, so that's pretty good too. Jane Thor also ignores defense up in war on all attacks. So she's going to hit very hard, both with the passive and just her general attacks. If we can hopefully get some decent star levels on her, I think that's going to be very, very strong. Now, when Jane Thor or hero Asgardian allies attack an enemy, +1 charge to all hero Asgardians. So that includes mainly OG Thor, Jane Thor, and Valkyrie, because they're the only ones that are chargeable. So anytime somebody attacks, you know, and I'm wondering if this is also going to work on counters or assists or anything like that, right? You know, if that's going to also add to it, I don't know if that will or not. Sometimes passives don't trigger passives, right? Or whatever the case is. So we'll have to see how that works out in practice, but potentially that could be a lot of charges for the team, and I could imagine both Jane Thor and OG Thor just going off with their passive attacks for some crazy damage. Now, Jane Thor also gets 25% max HP, and in War, all the Hero Asgardian allies as well gain 25% max HP. In War, Jane Thor and Hero Asgardian allies gain 50% resistance against heal block. That's what I was talking about. So that's just a weird thing based on the speed bar that Heimdall gets for heal block. Valkyrie gains 10% damage per turn, up to 30%. This was something that I misinterpreted on the blog post, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is now. So I believe Silver Surfer Speed and Omega Red get something similar as well. So after 3 turns, she should have plus 30%. Valkyrie has immense on-death mechanics, providing a ton of buffs when someone dies. Not listed above. On top of this, she also throws out ability energy and healing per charged, when somebody dies, or herself. So it's just crazy amount of stuff that happens when somebody dies. Valkyrie gives self and Asgardian allies 25% crit chance as well. So that's on top of the 25% that Heimdall gives, which gives them a total of 50%. That's a lot, right? So if you give OG Thor a Raider ISO, you know, his AoE could probably come close to 100%. I don't remember what that is, 85? 50% plus there's a base value and then like 35% from Raider. I don't know. It's a lot. So this is something that would be very, very terrifying, and I'm curious to see what that does in battle. Now let's talk about the debuffs. There's actually not a lot, so this won't take very long. Sif does absolutely nothing. She has no debuffs. So unless you give her like a skirmisher ISO or something like that to, I don't know, land vulnerabilities, she doesn't do anything. Heimdall does do 1 turn of heal block. That's his ultimate on a... I'm calling this a cleave attack. So a cleave for me is anything that hits a primary target and adjacent targets. It saves me from having to say all of that in this small box here. So I just call it a cleave. Now he does flip stealth as well on his special, so if anyone's stealth, that will flip. Sif does nothing, so we can skip her. As far as OG Thor, he also doesn't really do much. He does stun. So he does a single target, 100%, assuming the focus part lands, and then 50% chance to stun everyone else in an AoE on his ultimate, as you guys are aware. So that's it for Thor. Not a lot of debuffs going on here. Let's talk about Jane Thor. Also not a ton going on. Jane Thor has 2 turns of Disrupt, single target, if the character is not stunned. And then we'll move into the other one, why that's important, because otherwise it blinds. So it blinds, and if it doesn't, then it does this. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, right? Yeah. No, sorry, it's a turn bar. Everyone, sorry, I got that mistaken. So the blind always happens. You either get the turn bar reduction if they're stunned, and if they're not, you get the disrupt. Okay, I fixed that. Again, not much there for Jane Thor. Then Valkyrie, we have 1 turn on spawn of offense down, but this is on war defense only, so keep in mind about that one. Also, she gets single target 1 turn of ability block. This is on her ultimate as well, and she also gets a single target 1 turn stun. So there's a couple of stuns here, but not too many. We mostly get it from her and from OG Thor. And that's it for Valkyrie. So again, not a lot of debuffs for this team, and we'll see why this there is trauma, and we'll talk about this because I believe I have it listed down below, or did I talk about it up here? No, I talked about it already, sorry. The charge mechanic for Jane Thor adds trauma. I should have probably put it in the box, but yeah, I mentioned it anyways. So extra stuff for this section. Valkyrie really punishes characters that have death proof by doing extra damage and bleed. Anytime anyone has death proof, she does additional stuff. Valkyrie uses her charge mechanic to do additional rebound chain damage on her ultimate, and then Valkyrie on war defense lowers the assist chance for all enemies by 20% per cosmic enemy up to 100%. And this is largely FU to Infinity Watch. That's just off the top of my head. A full cosmic team, maybe Ravagers as well. Like I don't know how many cosmic teams have assist chance, but there you are. And my end notes for this team. Only sustain is through their passive on-turn heals, but everyone gets 25% HP on turn. So there's some, and it's quite a lot, but there's no healer for the team. There's a good amount of buffs available, including defense up and offense up. Quite possibly a sound or a sound offense or defense war team. And the reason why I say either or is they're primarily a war defense team. However, with Mighty Thor's like war only text, there might be some wiggle room for theory crafting here on that one. They should also be a very sound Cosmic Crucible defense team for the same reasons. Low on overall debuffs other than Thor's stuns and one ability block kind of means that Hela probably would not serve much a purpose here, which is why I didn't really include her in the table. But there might be some theory crafting potential here maybe once the full team is out. They're very likely, most likely a Scourge team, so keep an eye on this team, and you might want to build this a little bit sooner rather than later just in case. They have very high damage potential with both OG Thor and Jane Thor's passive with the charge mechanics, and they're not really as long-term sustained, though, as Young Avengers or Heroes for Hire, but Valkyrie does punish people when allies die, and that might turn the tide of battle. So those are my initial thoughts. I think they're going to be a strong team. I think their damage potential is going to be very, very high, and I'm excited to see that part of things. Beyond that, I think we'll have to wait until we see more about like in battle, some like actual gameplay footage or test footage if we ever get any of that, before I make my final decisions. But this is still a team that I'm going to be building up because I'm not all that excited about Unlimited X-Men. So this is basically my next pet project. So let me know if you guys are planning on building this at all, what your guys' thoughts on the hero Asgardians, and what you're going to be doing going forward in patch 6.2. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then smash that like button and subscribe button so you can get some more information regarding teams and events going forward. So that's the end of this video, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.